The business really took off when we realized that our customers were creatives and they really cared about their branding and what the content that they were sharing. And we just built more tools to give them flexibility around making their videos unique.
Hey, Bootstrappers! Welcome to Bootstrap Stories, the podcast where founders, marketers, and thoughtful leaders share the most actionable tips on building a successful business. After meeting with hundreds of bootstrappers in the past years, I figured out that we all struggle to grow our businesses. But the truth is that most of us don't know where to ask for help or advice. That's why I decided to start this podcast, to give you all the keys to succeed at every stage of your business. All the tested strategies for solving your struggles and taking your business to a new level. No fluff, no bullshit, only a real talk between friends that help each other succeed. Today, my guest for this episode is Baird Hall, a great entrepreneur who launched and scaled multiple bootstrap SaaS business. Baird, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, G.
I'm super excited to have you. I've followed your journey, the multiple SaaS that you've built. And before we get started, I just want to give quick outline for our audience. So we're going to chat about the different bootstrap business that you built and scale. Then we're going to go back to your actual business, which is Churnkey. And down the line, we'll also address a super important topic for SaaS businesses, which is how do you reduce churn? Sounds good?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Awesome. So if we go back, to kind of what got you started into entrepreneurship and your first businesses, can you walk us through a bit through the different adventures you got?
Yeah, I was working for a tech company here in town, which was actually a bootstrap company. I didn't even really know it at the time. Wasn't thinking much about company structures back then. I was just, I was a solutions engineer and doing a bunch of sales calls and demos and learned a lot with this company going from the 5th employee to about 50. And it started getting too big. And to be honest, at the time, I didn't know why I wanted to start my own thing. It was just a gut feel pull that I knew I wanted to try it. I was young. I was 26 or 27, just married and no kids and no mortgage. So it just felt like the time to do it. And I actually got married. My wife and I got married in January. And in February, I told her that I wanted to leave my job and start my own company. And she had no mention of this beforehand. So a testament to her for, being able to kind of ride the waves with me and let me explore it. So yeah, I left my job, and my business partner and I, Nick, were actually, our wives were best friends. And we were just talking, startups and ideas all the time. And our first company was, we actually tried to build Clubhouse 7 years ago.
Okay.
It's a social audio platform built around channels and topics. We started with sports fans. The idea was to give sports fans a place to go actually talk about the game or talk about their team using audio. And we were just way too early. Investors didn't get it. It was really hard to build back then. We were doing hybrid mobile apps, trying to work with media processing. And so it was a total mess. It was about a year and a half, drained my savings. We had to go back to consulting, wound up selling it for parts. But that was the first go at it.
And I think it's so first you started on the B2C side, and when you made that transition to consulting, how exactly did that go? So I guess it's quite nice whenever you do consulting because you can start making money. But then there is always this issue about how do you scale? Do you really want to scale it with people or more people and build an agency? So what was kind of the next step and the next business model for you?
We were doing consulting on the side to kind of pay the bills, and the app that we launched, we actually had a couple thousand active users, and we started getting podcasters that would sign up, and they were trying to engage with their audience more and just find creative ways to kind of, get their name out there more. So we kind of fell into just this customer discovery of learning about these podcasters and what they were trying to do. And as we were winding that business down, kind of our last marketing shot that we took was we built this little tool that would take the audio clips that our users would post via the mobile app, turn it into a video so we could put it on Facebook and Instagram. The thought was, well, if people can, hear what these people are talking about, because it was really great content. We had some really fun, amazing users, never made $1, but and so we built this little tool to kind of put it on social media for these clips. And these podcasters we were working with were wait, how'd you do that? I want to do that with my podcast. And the light bulb kind of went off. We're like, oh man, we've been working on the wrong thing. We kind of built this thing that podcasters were asking us for. And it was like right out of the gate, we started feeling the pull in that direction. So it was, okay, let's sell, the tech to somebody else and, keep consulting, kind of build out this MVP, and let's just kind of see where it goes. And the initial goal was, if we wanted to bootstrap the SaaS product and just have it pay our mortgages, was like kind of the first initial goal. And it took a lot longer than I thought. I can't remember now. That was, the company's called Wavve, which we recently sold. And we just kept plugging away at it, and it kept growing. It was a great business, and we loved running it.
So during the growth of that business, it's what were kind of like your different acquisition like channels, and what was the strategy behind it? Was it to hire a team that could manage it so you could actually work on other projects, or how exactly did the growth go?
I can't say there was a clearly defined strategy. It was just kind of one thing after another. The first 50 customers were from direct sales. So just, finding people on social media that were talking about their podcast and, sending them an email, showing them an example. It's probably the first 50 that way, which, this is a $10 product. And I think it was $7 at the time. Lowest paid. So quickly after 50 customers, we realized that was not going to scale and work. So we started working on some SEO, which kind of helped us get to 100, I would say. Tested some paid ads and marketing, but the business really took off when we realized that our customers were creatives and they really cared about their branding and what the content that they were sharing. And we just built more tools to give them flexibility around making their videos unique, include their logos, brand style guides. And people started sharing it, and to the point where they were really proud of it and like showing other people and talking about it. So that was kind of when everything clicked and people started sharing it. Word of mouth growth took over, and it really started growing.
No, that's really nice. And to what stage, did you grow the business before selling it?
So we started that business in 2016. January 2016 is kind of when we launched our beta, and we scaled it up to 100. We got up to 135K MRR. So I guess 1.6. And after it had been 4 years, I also started Zubtitle, which is a video editing, kind of a similarly related app, video captioning and editing software, which I'm still running today. And it just kind of, honestly, we kind of ran out of ideas on where to take it next. And we feel like we had kind of taken it as far as it could, and it needed some new operators with a new vision. And we also had other projects we wanted to work on, including Churnkey. So we sold it. It sold in March of last year in 21.
Nice.
To Calm Capital. Yeah, that was an experience. So yeah, it was
good or bad experience.
It was great. It was really good. Yeah, Calm Capital, kind of one of these portfolio companies that goes around and buys SaaS businesses that are kind of in that range that we were. And it was really interesting that we were kind of talking to brokers, and we had some inbound interest. And so we kind of we picked like 5 different groups to go through the evaluation process. And they were the only ones that were semi-local. They were in North Carolina, we're in South Carolina. And so we just really clicked with the team initially. And the negotiations were actually the best part of the process. We set up a shared Slack group between both teams, and we had the purchase agreement, and they would just take the outline or paragraphs from the purchase agreement and put it in Slack, and we would create a thread and just go back and forth, kind of negotiating on different terms. And it was this really interesting async, kind of, pun intended, calm way of structuring a deal. It took a little bit of time, but actually we got it done in 3 months, start to finish, which I think is really good.
Yeah, it's good.
So it was interesting. It was, something new for us. We did it all ourselves, aside from a lawyer to help us with closing.
So you didn't go through a broker in the end?
We wound up not doing it because we kind of really gelled with these guys, with the owners of Calm Capital, and kind of felt they were trustworthy and wound up being trustworthy. And we got a great relationship with them now. So it was a good experience. It was weird because, I definitely had the feeling that I was when they call it, you're, getting rid of selling your baby or whatever the term is.
Yeah.
There was some emotional, letting go of it was a little tough, but 4 or 5 months, and then kind of transferred it over and was kind of, ready to move forward, work on the next stuff.
And how big was the team when you sold it?
We were a team of 3 partners, and we had a contract engineer, 3 marketing coordinators that were all contractors, full-time support, who's still with us now at Zubtitle and Churnkey. He comes with us on every business that we start. It was nice. A pretty small team. Between 5 or 7 contractors, I would say. We ran it really lean. Sometimes I look back and kind of wish we maybe had invested more into it, but we were really leaned into the bootstrap mentality for that business, and it worked out really well.
Oh, that's really cool. And how come did you started Zubtitles? At what stage did you decide you know what, we have this SaaS company, it's growing, and I want to start a new one? Because a lot of people, and this is an advice a lot of founder would give, or a lot of VCs or whatever, say you should focus only on one thing. It's something that, for example, at Lempire, we've never done, but I'm curious to hear why did you decide to also go through that route?
It's just I just kept seeing the need, and our customers kept asking for it. They wanted captions on their videos, and we would see people on social media asking for captions on their videos, an easy way to do it. It was just kind of seemed like such a great opportunity that I would have regretted it if I didn't. So I could have waited, but the timing felt really good. And we were kind of at a calm period with Wavve where I had some additional time. It was kind of turning into passive income. So I had the time, and I remember I broke my ankle and was laid up on a couch for 2 months or so. And that's when I did it. I was like, well, I got time. I'm sitting here doing nothing. I might as well knock this out. So that's a good point. Definitely over the last 2 years, I was splitting time between Churnkey and Zubtitle. Which was really difficult because they're 2 very different businesses. One's B2B enterprise style software. The other one is kind of more prosumer B2C. But I would say Wavve and Zubtitle were so closely related. They were different audiences, but they were very similar products, similar businesses. They were really driven by a lot of the same marketing tactics. It didn't feel like I was context switching constantly. It almost, I was kind of taking what I had learned and applied it to there was a lot of unique stuff to Zubtitle to figure out as well. But it didn't feel like, starting from 0 to 1. Maybe that's kind of where it lands is, I don't think going forward, especially now that I have a kid, I'm probably not going to start multiple businesses at the same time anymore. Really focus on one and get a good plan in place for it to, kind of go on its own, even if you still own it, before starting something else.
And so you've applied more or less the same growth strategies to Zubtitles, and so far what's the growth like? Have you seen the same trend as Wavve, or is it different? Is it faster? Do you feel
pretty similar?
Yeah. Okay.
I would say it's a little faster because we didn't need to learn as much on the marketing and business side. The product side needed a lot of attention and learning. We kind of started as just video captioning. You would pay to use it, and we got up to about 10K MRR with that. But where that business changed was learning that these people wanted their videos captioned, but they also wanted to edit their video and make it unique to each specific social media platform. So we built tools to say here's your template for Instagram, here's your template for Facebook. And then it turned into more of a video editor with captioning being at the center of it. And then that one took off, and it's grown pretty similarly. I'm surprised it hasn't topped it. It's a little lower than what Wavve was when we sold it. It's over about 110K MRR. And has grown really well. And we are doing a total renovation of the business right now. We're changing the front end, the back end, the website, really revamping it because video is continuing to grow, and it's an interesting space. With TikTok now on the scene, TikTok's not going anywhere, so we kind of have to adjust for the new landscape in
Is it an opportunity you're looking at, adapting a format for Twitter and going heavily on this, or?
Yeah, we still haven't we haven't really figured out we've got some different directions that we might go. We haven't landed on a strategy yet. Really, we're just learning. It feels like things are moving so fast in, the TikTok space and social video, the trends and what people are doing. So we're kind of, just watching the market right now and trying to figure out how to adjust. But yeah, we've got some ideas and kind of new product directions that we want to go.
Nice. And if we go now like to kind of like the story, because I think it's impressive like that you were able in quite a short time to kind of like leverage your learnings to address something to like a similar like market or like at least marketing strategy to build like two SaaS at the same time. So, like coming back to this where you're managing Wavve and Zubtitles, what kind of like pushes you towards, what, I'm going to go with Churnkey and start like something totally different?
Well, so Churnkey is interesting because Wavve and Zubtitle, similar businesses, similar metrics. And with that customer base, churn was always our number one problem. Growth was not a problem. It was always churn because people, they'd sign up, they'd try it, they might not need it the next month. A lot of these people are aspiring entrepreneurs and their business hasn't quite gotten to the point where they can justify the cost. So our churn was always over 10%, 11, sometimes 12%. And, on 100, million ARR, that's a sizable chunk. And we were really like, it really hit us when we were running the numbers and realized that we're pretty much like replacing our customer base every 1.5 years, sometimes even sooner than that, which is kind of insane. So the growth engine is really what is keeping it going. So churn was always our biggest problem. And, we just everything. We hired consultants. We, focused on onboarding. We tried churn prediction, product pricing, all this stuff. And a lot of those things helped. But what we think we were one of the, kind of first people to realize how important the cancellation flow is to your churn number. Now Netflix and Disney Plus and all that, they figured this out a long time ago, but SaaS businesses, I don't think had really adopted it yet. And we implemented it in instant 2% churn reduction. Wow. And that was not even doing it very well. And then, so we kept tweaking it and working on it. And
what were like typical changes that you were making to your cancellation process?
We like testing different offers, like how to present offers to users that are subscribers that are canceling, what order to place things in. Like, do we just give them an offer right away? Do we ask them a few questions? Like, do we try to re-educate them? And really just figuring out the flow, and also how important the design side is. Luckily, we have some good consumer style UX guidelines, and I applied some of those as well. Really started making a difference. And yeah, we cut churn by 2% and got it down to 7.5%, which, going back to Wavve and Zubtitle, it makes a huge difference when you're looking at acquirers. Like, that when we were having acquisition talks, churn was the first thing that come up as, they bring it up as a risk, as a way to devalue it, to try and get the price down. So that's why we were just so intent on it. And we basically, like, the big light bulb that went off for us is we always thought that when a user clicks the cancel button, they're a lost cause. They're gone. They've already decided to churn, and there's no, don't even worry about it. Let's just go try to acquire 10 more. But what we found out is that that's true for most users. But there's about somewhere for most businesses between 15 and 30, maybe 40% customers that don't actually want to cancel. They are just canceling because they feel like they have to, because they don't have any other option. And we realized that the cancellation process is actually an amazing place to reset expectations with your customer and figure out what they want and what they need and try to get them into a plan or a place that's better. Now, you're always going to lose customers, and you can't get churned down as well. I guess some customers some people do have net positive churn, but it's always going to be a part of it. So it was just a big opportunity for us. And we felt like we gotta go help other companies do this, because we'll help other SaaS founders, kind of figure this out. And so I think we felt like we kind of needed to, again, just an opportunity that we saw that we would have regretted it if we didn't do it. We're big on, I think it's Jeff Bezos that has the regret minimization framework, basically minimizing regret. Okay. to help you make decisions, to like, put yourself months and years in the future and look back. And if you did or didn't do it, would you regret it? And if you would regret it, then just go do it. Even if you fail, you can at least say, well, at least we tried. Sure. So we really kind of put that into a lot of our early decision-making process on whether or not we're going to start a new company or not.
And what was like kind of the, like the action plan, for going, okay, like you've tested things with your own software, so you understand like the value of it, you see like this, it's working, and going from that to, okay, I'm building like a new product, starting all over again. Like, how do you build the product? What's the product about? Like, how do you implement it, and how do you start scaling? Because you mentioned that right now, kind of, it's a whole different market because you're targeting like maybe like bigger companies. So what was like the process of all of that? The
biggest learning for me over the last 2 years is how different B2C, prosumer, and B2B, especially upmarket B2B software businesses are. Nothing that we learned. So when we started Zubtitle, a lot of the stuff we learned from Wavve applied to Zubtitle, kind of helped us get a start. All the things we learned on Zubtitle actually slowed us down with Churnkey, because we were trying to apply all the same business principles around how we grew, activating users, marketing, applying it to a B2B enterprise style business. It slowed us down. We were doing everything wrong for the first year. But I would say how we got started with building the product, this one was also very different. You can't really MVP a product that, is core to a customer's billing system. Like, we're integrating directly with Stripe and handling requests with customer data and customer subscriptions. So we really had to build the thing out, really build out a full, well done version 1. So it took us about 6 months. It was longer than we thought, which, still looking back, 6 months isn't that bad. And we built it, and we had sold Wavve, and we kind of went back to our peers, a lot of people in the Bootstrapped SaaS community, and started just pitching it and showing it to people. And that's how we got our first few customers, just reaching out to existing relationships, friends on Twitter that we had talked to that were also founders. So that's kind of how we got started, and getting feedback, and just kind of started rolling from there.
And that's nice. And what was like, because I think it's interesting also for people listening. So you build like your product for 6 months. Like, a lot of people, I think it's interesting because most people will tell you like, okay, ship a MVP as soon as possible, like a week or whatever, and just like have people pay for it. And now you know that you validated your idea. But I do think, like, as you said, in some cases, you have to build something robust, something people can trust, and spend time to create something that doesn't look like shit. Otherwise, people are just gonna not trust you, and then it's over. Yep. So when you're at that 6 month stage, you go through people and like relationship you've built across the years. What do you ask people? Do you ask like mainly for feedback? Do you try to close them as like customers, or what's like kind of your approach towards that?
I'd say the first few, depending on the relationship, for the first few, it's just feedback. Like, hey, can you use this? Can you pay us $50 a month or something, just to prove that you'll swipe the credit card, but not really worrying about pricing. And that's kind of what we did for our first few customers. But then, pretty quickly after that, it's going out direct sales, trying to, validate, like, can we get somebody's attention? Can we get them to take action on this? And can we get them to pay 100, 150? It's just a lot of different testing. And one thing I love about using direct sales early on for product validation is you can test different copy and different approaches. Every single email can be a little bit different. You can tailor it. You can, really, it's not exactly it can be a scientific approach, but early on, I really look at it more of like more art than science, where you're just trying different copy, you're trying different approaches, different positioning, and kind of see, and also different types of customers to see, who's going to gravitate towards it. So we spent probably a good 4 to 6 months where I was just really doing a lot of outreach to prospects, and trying to get them to sign up and convert.
And right now, like, cause Wavve was like low price, Zubtitles also like low price. Like, what's kind of like the ARPU, like average revenue per user or per account right now?
Yeah, this is totally different, well over $1,000. It is, nice. And it's been totally different than the other businesses, because as we continue to go up market, we find better and better product market fit. Nice. So, which also means
because you're saving more money to people. So obviously,
exactly, yeah. So the bigger the business, the more and it really comes down to volume. The number of customers per month that leave, the higher that gets, the more pain there is, the more important churn is, and the more Churnkey can have a bigger effect. So it's been really interesting, moving up market. And it had been a good 7 years since I'd done enterprise or even been involved in enterprise style sales. So we went from, let's get 1,000 people to this landing page and hopefully 2% of them become customers, to let's pick 5 of these customers that we think would be a really good fit. And it might take a month or two to get them through. And it's also interesting, looking at a product that's not free. Not only is it not freemium, but it takes implementation. You have to not only install the web snippet to, activate the cancel button within your SaaS app, but there's also a little bit of back-end code that needs to be written. There's also business logic that needs to be addressed, such as, if a customer decides to pause their account instead of cancel it, what happens? Do you let them have access? Do you want to let them, do you want to shut off access, maybe take away certain features? So there's kind of throughout the sales process, there's not only qualification, but there's also a little bit of discovery around, how do you plan to use this? And it becomes much more of a consultative style sale, which is just very different than, we didn't talk to people in the other businesses. We were just driving traffic and kind of looking at data and seeing what works and what doesn't. So it's been really interesting, and it's been really good for us as founders to see this different type of business and learn these new strategies. We hired a full-time head of sales, which was kind of we had never done that before, but he's really doing a great job. That's kind of been our latest update for Churnkey.
Nice. And so if you walk us through the process, let's say you've reached out to someone, you book a demo, and for the setup, is this really, as you said, a kind of enterprise where you're going to ask them lots of questions? And because you mentioned that it has to be integrated by devs, is that correct? Or is it a plug and play type of solution?
It's most of our customers have an engineer that is going to actually install the web snippet, and there's a couple lines of server side code that need to be done. So usually an engineer does it. I would say I don't want to paint the picture that it's really hard to set up, because we've had some customers, we'll do the demo and they'll set it up in 15 minutes on the demo call. So it can be done quickly. Yeah. But other customers really want to take their time and think through it, because, it's customer facing and it's going to have it's going to impact your, your revenue and churn metrics. So, it really just depends on the customer and the size of the customer, how many stakeholders are involved. But yeah, we generally do a demo. On the demo, we can get through the kind of the discovery, kind of have the questions. Larger customers want to have a technical review with our engineers, and then get it installed. But then the beautiful thing about Churnkey is once you get it in place and you get it set up, it's in and working, and it just does its thing behind the scenes. And you get an email that tells you how many customers were saved. And we get some really great analytics and dashboards too. But yeah, not to go into the sales pitch of Churnkey, but that's kind of the process.
No, but I think that solves quite of a huge pain point. And do you feel because what I'm interested in is for example, with Wavve, Zubtitles, you're going to see usage, and you can measure, how people are benefiting from their usage, etc. But it's still tough, to say, okay, here's how much you made, thanks to the tool. Yeah. But with a tool like Churnkey, what's I think is really valuable and interesting is to kind of showcase to your users, here's how many customers you saved, as you said, and how much money you saved. But how exactly does that work? To calculate this, is this, for example, you take, let's say the churn rate, average churn rate in the last year from Stripe, and then if it lowers down, this is kind of the difference, or how does that work?
We generally focus on a metric that we call boosted revenue. So it's kind of a combination of how many customers were saved, how many customers, changed plans and, paused instead of canceled. And so basically with Churnkey in place, how much revenue was, we don't like to call it saved revenue. We would like to call it boosted revenue because it's gained revenue that you would have lost. So that's really what we focus on in number of customers as well. Another big metric is that we like to deliver is the change in LTV. So a good example of that is even just implementing a pause functionality, even if you just did it yourself. If you don't have that and you have high volume churn, allowing customers to pause is immediately going to boost your revenue. And then also a portion of those customers, when they come back and activate, they're going to be subscribed for a certain number of time after. So you're going to get increased LTV. That to me is
so just to clarify for maybe our listeners, whenever you say pause, do you say like you have a button where people can pause their subscription and they have to choose for the amount of months they want to pause it? So let's say I'm pausing it for a month and automatically in a month it will reactivate, or how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So within the cancellation flow, you can activate a pause offer basically. And it works really well for products like Wavve and Zubtitles where that came from, because we'll have customers that, for 1 month in the summer, for example, maybe they're not creating videos and they don't actually want to cancel. They just don't have videos that month. So they want to pause and then have the account reactivated because they don't want to lose all their data or videos and things like that. And that's a good one for increasing LTV, which is a really big pillar of what Churnkey does.
No, that's really interesting. And how is the churn with Churnkey then?
Non-existent, which is cool. It's very ironic. There's no churn. We've lost 2 customers that just didn't activate. And then there was not a good fit. There was one more that was it was a kind of more of a political issue internally at their team. For customers that get implemented and get rolling with it, there's no churn with it, which is interesting. Now our problem with Churnkey is all about sales and activation and, reducing the sales cycle and time to go live for the implementation. So it's just, it's kind of interesting how ironic how the tables have turned on us.
Yeah. And I want to leverage like kind of like your expertise around like this topic and dig more a bit, because you faced it with Zubtitles and Wavve, and it's like, okay, let's say you're a SaaS founder and you have like churn issue. What would be for you kind of like the process of, the things you have to implement? Like, what do you test first? Like, is it going to talk to your users? Is it like implementing like a different like cancellation tool? Like, can you kind of like walk us through like the process you would do or you went through actually that process to fix it or at least reduce it to a certain extent?
Yeah. So when we kind of approach churn for all the different businesses, the first ways we start is with the data and the data collection. So, making sure you have tools in place that are actually tracking your churn metrics, which most everybody is using, kind of revenue analytics tools, and Churnkey does that as well. But the first step is, understanding where is churn. And one really important piece to understand is seasonal churn. That's something that people don't think about a lot, is how does your churn change over time? Because you really want to understand that, because if, your churn's 8% 1 month and you go try to fix it and it goes up, well, maybe you actually did improve it. You're just not looking back at last year and understanding seasonal trends. So really digging into the data is kind of the first step. And then it's really important to make sure that you are collecting information when customers are canceling. So just a simple survey is a way to do it, is a good way to do it, to try to figure out why customers are canceling. But this is tricky though, because a lot of customers will kind of use a cop out. So for example, at Wavve, we would say like, doesn't fit my budget was one of the survey options. Like 80% of people chose that because they're canceling because they don't want to pay it. But that's not why they're canceling. They don't want to pay it for some other reason. So you got to test and try different surveys, to try and, kind of get the information. One thing that Churnkey does, and again, people that are listening, you can do all of this stuff yourself. If you want to self-roll it, totally fine. But we have a Slack integration where Churnkey, every time a customer cancels, it'll show up in a Slack channel, and you can go through and see why people canceled, and reach out to the people that have interesting answers that you want to learn more from. So that's a really important first place to start. And then, the other low hanging fruit is onboarding and making sure customers are getting activated and understanding the difference between new and old churn. So new churn is when a new customer signs up. Everybody's going to have a little bit different kind of time frame for how they want to segment this. But for us, it was like, 0 to 2 months. Like if a customer was canceling in the first 2 months, it's very different than somebody that's canceling, 7, 8, 9, 10 months later. We also found at Churnkey over the time that how important it is to talk to those customers differently throughout the cancellation process. It's kind of a interesting learning that we had.
Could you give like a specific example of how would you treat someone who canceling like after 1 or 2 months versus someone, as you said, like would cancel after like 7 to 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, so for a customer that's been with you for a long time, 7, 8, or over a year, whatever the time period is, the copy is going to be totally different. You want to appreciate them, thank them for being around, not be pressured to them at all. And then any offers and deals that you give them want to be really, way more than you would give somebody that's just canceling after 1 to 2 months. If somebody's canceling the new churn kind of in that first segment of months, that copy is going to be much more focused on troubleshooting issues, product market fit. Like, what were you expecting? What happened? What did we do wrong? So it's really just approach, how you're going to, again, going back to the cancellation process is a chance to reset expectations. And so with the new customers, you really want to just have a different, more support style approach where someone that's been around longer is you want to think more customer success style. And then the offers, are going to be different.
And so your advice is whenever people are canceling, you feel like you whenever you are mentioning offers, are you mentioning like discounts on plan or different plans? Like what are the type of offers you're talking about?
So pausing is, and then discounts as well. You can do discounts on the customer level or to the specific plan. You can do them short-term or long-term. That's really interesting. Some customers will offer very aggressive discounts for shorter months. I've also seen people doing long-term discounts at a lower percentage.
And do you feel like it's kind of reducing like the I'm always wondering, with discounts, if it's not like lowering, like the perceived value of your product. Like what are your like thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, for us, I guess it's situational. With Wavve and Zubtitle, our customers were just, very budget conscious. We weren't working with businesses. So the discounts, I think they saw them as, goodwill from our company. It was a very positive thing. But in the B2B space, definitely, when the product's not priced right, it definitely doesn't feel, the value doesn't quite match up. So again, it's always a cop-out answer, I know, but like, it's just really different. It's very different between those segments of business. This has been really interesting.
And is that something like you are like tracking with Churnkey also? Like, for example, let's say you have like these two segments, one segment that you've identified as, so let's say you have your survey, and within your survey, you are able to know whether or not people are price sensitive. So only for price sensitive people, you can actually offer like that discount. And what I'm curious about is, do you also check like the cohort of people, who are getting like discounts? Do they churn like after the discount is over, or like down the road or more? Or is that something you're also tracking, or is it just like stopping at the discount and okay, we saved like that customers and we're kind of like boosting the revenue because they're staying? So that's...
We track everything. We don't actually have a dashboard for that. That's a really good idea to actually, I think pausing is probably the best one for that too, is the customers that pause, how many of them are actually activating? And is this, just because someone paused doesn't really mean that your LTV is going to increase. Like those people might just cancel, might just be delaying the cancellation. That's not something we report on the dashboard right now, but we're doing this big analytics push right now. So it's something that we want to offer down the road.
Nice. I think it's really interesting because I do feel, as you said, like the cancellation process is something that's so like, I think overlooked, because you have either the people hiding like the cancellation button, on their SaaS, or the one who makes it like super easy. But there is no real like I don't feel like people put a lot of thought in the process. And I think like the basic answer is to say like, yeah, but you know what? Like when people want to cancel, I just leave them and they need to cancel. But I really like your approach of thinking that, no, I mean, like if they started paying for your software, that they kind of like had a specific expectation. And if they are canceling, it's either that, you're not meeting their expectation, or that they had the wrong one. And being able to test like all these different approaches to kind of like understand better your customers makes a lot of sense. And I was also curious, like, bumping on everything you said, like, have you ever tested this thing where, like when churning, the person is kind of like forced to go through like a call with either the founder or like someone like, founder if it's a small team, or like, like a customer support representative or something. Have you tested this? Is it something like you would advise or not, or just like keep it automatic with forms? And
yeah, it's a really good point, because I wouldn't call that a dark pattern, but dark patterns work. Like if you make the cancellation process more difficult, your churn's going to go down. And we have worked with customers that after implementing Churnkey, their churn, maybe doesn't. It's been a few times where there were some dark patterns in place, where their churn necessarily didn't change a ton, because Churnkey was still doing about as good as a job as the dark patterns were. But what they weren't thinking about was reactivations later. So when you have dark patterns in place, those customers aren't going to come back. Now some of them might, may or may not come back regardless based on the situation. But so our approach with Churnkey has always been, there's when a large group of customers are canceling, there's some that are unsavable. Well, let's let them go. Let them get through the process as quick as possible, and let them skip through. But there are people that want to think about it and evaluate and kind of explore different options and kind of see if they want to reset their situation. So we think that's why it's so important to provide an experience to customers that works for all customers, and gives them the options. We haven't tested making people call in. We're honestly, in our other businesses, we're against it. I know it works because, again, it's more friction. And it can be good to do that in a short period of time if you're focused on qualitative data, saying like, okay, we need to figure out why people are canceling. We need to get them on the phone. Or let them, cancel by email. And also that's fine if your price point is so high, and you can justify the, people on the phones to do it, it's okay. But at scale, for a lot of companies, it's just not an option. So, we haven't tested it. Now we do have offers around support, e-learning, that target customers that just were confused or needed help. And then what we do is integrate directly with Intercom or whatever chat support system it is to get them talking to a customer support rep if they choose to. So definitely not something we kind of just make it part of the process as an option as people are exploring it.
And have you tested? Because I'm curious, like, to know, like, because I'm always wondering if people, whenever like they are like churning, if like this is the right time for them to potentially like consume more content, or if they are like just bored. Like, what's your feeling about it? Because you mentioned about like giving them educative content or having them like chat to someone else. Do you feel like sometimes people like just, are like kind of like disappointed in the product and they just want to end with it? Or do you feel like, Yeah,
definitely. There's always a cohort of customers, that are canceling, that just want to get out and they don't want to talk to you and they just want to be gone. And that's, I think that's fine. You let those people go. And for those segments, so it's another thing about Churnkey a strategy that we've used is we tag those customers, let them go, like don't bother them too much, let them go, let's tag them. And those people go back into a reactivation campaign. So, Hey, a month later, after they've cooled down, let's try to re-engage them and start kind of get the conversation going. It's definitely, that's the tricky part about churn and your cancellation flow is that there's, every customer that goes through it is going to be in a little bit of a different situation. So it's a very delicate walk that you have to have of, okay, let's get some information. Let's try to offer them and try to re-engage them, but we can't push them too far. We're going to, end up with a bad relationship, which is what we don't want. So I think that was probably one of the most unexpected challenges that we had to think through, which was really applying all of our UX user experience tactics and strategies from before and kind of focusing them into the cancel flow.
Really interesting. And from like the companies you've worked with and potentially like things you've tested, like what are like a few tactics that you found out like to be like quite creative and interesting to put in place for the cancellation process?
Yeah, we have our largest customer processes. It's an insane amount of cancellation. Like they just have extremely high volume. And so we give total control over the CSS and front end of the cancellation flow. It kind of starts, with kind of our best practices. But they've really kind of taken it to the next level with incorporating video into cancellation flows. So it humanizes the experience to begin with. When you actually see somebody, the cancellation flow pops up and they can cancel and move through it, but there's a video that starts playing. That was a really interesting, watching their save rates from after they added video was really, really incredible. And then the other thing that our really kind of savvy customers have done is incorporated e-learning into the cancellation flow. So those customers that didn't quite get activated is actually taking all this e-learning content that they've had and having it available within the cancellation flow to kind of, tease them and try to get them to go learn more. And that's even part of the offer process for some customers is they're given a discount or pausing, whatever it might be. And then also says, and here's a free passcode to like our e-learning course, like go spend some time watching videos over the next week. And then they get an email sequence later to, after they've gone through it to sign back up and let's try it again. So that's really been a fun part of this business too, is we were learning from customers now, watching what they do and, taking what they've done and, productizing it and making it better and taking it to the next level. So it's been cool.
Nice. I really like this idea and strategy, of, how you can kind of co-create the best content and also like the best product possible with your existing users based on what they are testing. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And again, like I do feel like churn is something that has not been addressed properly in the SaaS world. So really cool to see you like going Appreciate in it. There. And
yeah, we started with kind of another, while we're on the churn subject, it's really important to understand the difference between involuntary and voluntary churn. So involuntary is credit card cancellations, whatever error codes that have the subscription that cancels. And then voluntary is when somebody obviously voluntarily clicks the cancel button. And we feel like we've done a really good job on the voluntary side. And all of our customers are using, dunning solutions is the term for reactivation and like trying to save canceled credit cards. So we're building that and reactivation campaigns over the next coming months. So our goal is to have Churnkey to be the one place you go for all your different churn strategies, of course, outside of onboarding and activation and stuff. But so yeah, we're excited. It's been really fun company to work on. It's been, a lot of learning for us, but we feel like we're now kind of in the B2B space and starting to understand it more and kind of found our home.
No, that's really cool. And again, like I feel we covered quite a lot of topics and you shared like a lot of really, really interesting things that I'm sure are going to be like super valuable for our users. Before we wrap this up, I usually ask like 3 questions. So The first one is, what's your favorite book or podcast that you would recommend to another like Bootstrap founder?
Favorite book? I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. I guess I had too much of that with Wavve, kind of taking a break from that. My favorite book is Moneyball. I played baseball in college and sports fan, but even if you're not a sports fan, it's a great book. There's a movie too, if you don't really want to read it.
I like the movie.
The movie's really good. I watch the clips on YouTube from the movie all the time, just when I want to get energized. Yeah. But if whoever's not familiar with it, it's about this manager in baseball named Billy Beane, who was the first one to like take a very analytical approach to a very old fashioned scouting department of baseball. And it's just it gets me excited because it's just watching somebody look at something totally different than the way everybody else sees it. And then finding a few other people that kind of see it the same way and really trying to change kind of how the game is approached. So I love that book. It's I should reread it again. It's probably been a year.
Nice. The second question I have for you is, like we all have like those tough times when building a business. So what's for you like the number one thing you like to do to regain energy during tough times?
Good question. Well, I'm pretty lucky to be on the beach here in Charleston. So getting out on the water is one of my favorite ways to just relax, get really focused and in the moment when I'm, out on the boat. That's definitely one. Traveling with my wife, although we don't do as much of that now that she's pregnant, getting ready to have our second child in about 30 days. Another thing, once I take a break and get kind of rested up a bit, when I'm trying to get re-energized, I get back into support. I start taking support cases with customers and I talk to them and, just in chat and emails. And it just reminds me like, there's people that are using our product and relying on it to get their job done. And sometimes you forget about that when you're just looking at, numbers and revenue and, a high level aspect of the business. I think sometimes it's really good to get your hands dirty and just interact with customers and watch them use it, talk to them. And for me, especially with Zubtitle, I really care about the creator market and, podcasters, video creators, and I want to help them. So like once I talk to them and it just lights a fire under me. I did that over the last couple of months with Zubtitle and I'm just really, really re-energized.
Nice. I love it. I 100% agree. I think like, of course it's nice to see like the numbers growing and everything, but helping people in the long term is something that you never get like bored of, like just having like this happy customers and knowing that, you kind of like change their life in a way. It's really awesome. And
I have to remind myself that, sometimes have to remind myself that like, and even for people that are just getting started out there, like if you build something that people use, like that's cool. Like that's cool. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter if it turns into some big, big project, big company sale or something like that. Like just enjoy, making things that people use and focus on that.
That's 100%. And the final question I have for you is, who's your favorite Bootstrap founder and why?
My favorite Bootstrap founder, it's got to be Davis Bear. He's the founder of OneUp. He's actually one of the earliest Churnkey customers, and we've been Twitter friends. And I'm really interested recently in entrepreneurs that genuinely are having fun at what they do. Like you can tell that when he's on Twitter, he's just having fun. He doesn't take it all too serious. He loves what he does. And I don't know how to explain it other than I think he's just having a lot of fun. Elon Musk, I think, is the apex of this, right? You watch him, the guy
he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit about anything. And he is in the moment. He's focused, but he's also just letting it fly. And, I really appreciate that and gravitate towards people like that because I tend to overthink sometimes about like how things will be perceived or I don't want to post this on social media. I'm going to have somebody's going to respond back and say something. So I usually just kind of stay in the background. But yeah, you can just tell anyway. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
I understand.
I want to have more fun. I want to have more fun as an entrepreneur. Like I'm just really, I need to learn how to do that.
That's cool.
As well.
How can people follow you and get in touch with you if,
I'm on Twitter. It's at Baird Hall, Baird. There's not many Bairds talking about SaaS on Twitter, so you can probably find me pretty easily. Actually use LinkedIn a little bit to keep up with people. And then Churnkey is easy to find. You pop that in a Google search and Zubtitle is Zubtitle.com. Pretty easy to track down. And we've got 6 other partners too that you'll be able to find them as well. They're all good follows. We're always working on something.
Awesome. Well, Barry, it was really like a great chat. Thanks a lot for joining us on the podcast and have an awesome day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for listening to the Bootstrap Stories, the only podcast where Bootstrap entrepreneurs share their journey in all transparency. If you enjoyed this episode, don't hesitate to leave us a review. And in case you want to see the interview, all episodes are live on the YouTube channel. Check out the link in the description and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have an amazing day and make sure to also join us in our amazing Bootstrap community where we all helped each other to become successful and grow a profitable business. Take care and talk to you soon.